Taking a look at Costco Wholesale Corporation, ticker symbol COST, after they reported their Q1 results. We'll jump into the valuation for this one, take a look at its press release from this Q1 results. As always, walk through the financials and take a look at it from a stock perspective. This one has finally broken above its all-time highs and now breaking out of an uptrending channel that it's really been in over the last 5 years. We'll mark out some key support levels where I think you can come in here and accumulate Costco. As always, if you are new to the channel and find this type of content valuable, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button below. It would mean a lot. Shares of Costco up nearly 32, close to 33% over the past 1 year, up nearly 42% year to date. This one does give you a small 0.6% forward yield, now trading at a forward price to earnings closer to 41 times. That is certainly steep, especially when you consider its 10-year historic price to earnings. This is on a gap basis. Likes to trade closer to, I'd say, the mid 30s, even as low as really 29 times on a price to earnings. Certainly when it's pushing up 40, that is, in my opinion, a bit too much and getting borderline to that overvalued level. Historically, I think you like to see this one somewhere in that mid 30s on a price to earnings. Now their GAAP EPS did come in with a beat, posting $3.58. That beat estimates by nearly 16 cents, and then top line revenues coming in at $57.8 billion. That was in line with estimates. That was growth of just 6.2% year over year. And so if you take a look at it, net sales were benefited by approximately a 0.5 to 1% due to the shift of the fiscal calendar as a result of the 53rd week in fiscal 2023. So they basically got an extra year of sales when they compare that to last year. And so really you have organic revenue growth of closer to 5%, really 4.5-5%. You consider inflation running at close to 3 to 4%. Yeah, Costco's top line revenue is growing just in line with inflation really. But that's also always expected with Costco. Their revenues really just matching inflation and growing marginally. From an earnings perspective, in the foreseeable future, you see over the next few years, earnings are expected to grow really in that mid double digits to high single digits, really 8, 9, 10% for the next, you'd call it 3 to 5 years. From a revenue perspective, again, that is expected to be in that mid single digit, really 4 to 6% growth. From a price to sales, this one trades relatively in line to its peers. You take a look at like a Walmart or an Amazon, certainly cheaper than an Amazon on a price to sales because it's trading closer to a 1 times a price to sales. It does tend to trade rich on a price to earnings, however, just because it has such a predictable business model that membership fees is that recurring revenue, almost 100%, close to 90% renewal rate on that with very high margins. That membership fee, similar to an Amazon Prime really, is what gives it this high forward price to earnings multiple. Now, in terms of a special cash dividend, they also announced a cash dividend of close to $15 per share that will be fished out on January 12th. And so Costco does this really every 2 to 3 years. They pay out this special cash dividend just when they start accumulating a ton of cash on their balance sheet, which we'll get into in just a little bit. They pay out this special cash dividend to their investors. As a holder of Costco shares, you can look forward to this really every 2 to 3 years. Now, moving on to their statement of income, we have that net sales coming in at $56.7 billion. That was up roughly $3.5 billion from same time last year, where we were closer to $53.4 billion. It's this membership fees that you take a look at, and you see, although they didn't mention any price increases on that membership side in the press release, at least that I saw, they were able to increase their membership fees year over year by 8%. You see, now we're coming in at $1.08 billion. Last year, we were at flat $1 billion on that membership side. And so whenever they can increase their membership fees, that almost all of it flows right down to their bottom line. And so this membership fee is really high margins over at Costco. They sell their goods and services almost at cost, and so that's why what makes shopping at Costco really efficient for your consumer as well. As you see, merchandise costs coming in at $50.4 billion, and then they netted sales of just $56.7 billion from that. So very low margin on that sales side, but it's all of this membership revenues that are slowly increasing, and I think every 6 years they announce a membership fee hike. And so we can probably expect that from Costco in the upcoming several quarters. Also on that cost side, Costco doing a good job controlling costs on SG&A, that taking up just marginally at $5.4 billion. Last year we were at $4.9 billion. And so you take your total revenue, subtract off your operating expenses, you get to operating income of $1.98 billion. Last year we were at $1.75 billion. So again, just marginal increases on their operating income. And then you get to add a ton of interest income. They have a lot of cash on that balance sheet, and especially in a high interest rate environment, They get to recognize a ton of interest income. You see, last year we recognized close to $53 million of interest income. Now we're at $160 million. And so that gets added on to our net income and certainly bolsters it to a certain extent. Now sitting at 1.89, call it $1.6 billion worth of net income. Last year we were at 1.36. And so you see your net income per diluted share coming in at $3.58. Again, a decent increase from same time last year. Your shares outstanding not really ticking down. They do have a small buyback in place, but again, that's really not moving the needle over at Costco. It's these membership fees, the marginal increases in that, and then every 6 years when they do announce a membership fee hike, that is certainly what is moving the needle over at Costco's statement of income. Now moving on to their balance sheet, they're sitting on, it's nearly $17 billion worth of cash and cash equivalents. You compare that to really a quarter ago, they were at just $13.7 billion. So they added nearly $3.5 billion worth of cash in just these last 3 months at a run rate of nearly $1 billion per month in terms of adding that to their cash pile, sitting on roughly $18 billion worth of merchandise inventories. Keep in mind, this is for the period ended November 26th. So they do likely have to hold a bit more inventory coming into the December timeframe. And so current assets coming in at $40 billion, total assets coming in at $73 billion. In terms of liabilities, they do have roughly $20 billion in accounts payable, and then current liabilities coming in at $36.7 billion. So our current ratio is over 1, which is a check mark, as we have more current assets than current liabilities. And then they don't have a ton of long-term debt, surprisingly, for a retailer, especially a wholesale retailer like this. And not having that long-term debt certainly helps Costco. They're not paying a ton of interest expenses, and they can instead use that cash. Instead of paying down debt, they can use that cash to pay out special dividends like the one they're going to pay out very soon. You see their dividend payout will aggregate to roughly $6.7 billion. When we take a look at their cash, that's well over $17 billion. And so next quarter, you'll see this cash dwindle down quite a bit, but still we'll have close to $11 billion worth of cash and just around $10 billion worth of debt. And so their cash to debt still looking very, very good. Even with that, their balance sheet will look, frankly, pretty pristine. In terms of cash flows, we bring down that $1.6 billion worth of net income, get to add back a fair amount of depreciation. These are your Costco warehouses that are depreciating, frankly, at a pretty substantial amount, at least on a cash flow basis. And so we get to add that. We got to add back some stock-based compensation, get to add back a ton of changes in working capital, which we didn't have in the same time last year. And so your operating cash flow is coming in at $4.6 billion. If you really strip out this changes in working capital, that operating cash flow is relatively in line, just marginally higher compared to last year. We get to some investing activities, opening up new Costco warehouses. That is under your additions to property and equipment, opened up roughly $1 billion in terms of investing activities. Last year, we were roughly at the same rate. And so Costco continuing to expand their warehouses by investing in property and equipment. Frankly, that's, in my opinion, fairly smart thing to do for Costco. They also repaid off some debt, paid off some dividends, and then repurchased a decent amount of common stock, close to $162 million worth of common stock. But they did add nearly $3.3 billion onto their cash pile. And so you see at the start of the year, they were sitting at roughly $13.7 billion on cash to end the year off closer to $17 billion. Again, that is why they can announce special dividends like this one, paying off nearly $6.7 billion, frankly, because they are making a fair amount of cash flows. They don't have a ton of debt, and they have a really big cash pile. And so they can just pay off these special dividends for investors that really like to hold shares in Costco over the long term. And speaking of holding shares in Costco, this is a 5-year chart, and it's basically followed a pretty steady uptrend for the foreseeable past. Shares have now broken up to all-time highs. In my opinion, I do love Costco. I'm not going to lie. I love the business. I love the business model. Their membership fees, frankly, increasing them every 6 years. Just marginally, the consumer doesn't really feel that over 6 years, and the renewal rate is over 90%. That is certainly a sticky business model. There's a reason why consumers love to shop at Costco. So from a business perspective, absolutely love it. The stock, though, at all-time highs with a valuation closer to 40-45 times on a price to earnings, certainly not compelling to start a position. In my opinion, I think it is a bit overbought, a bit pricey. I would like to see a pullback in Costco. First level of support I see is really at $600. It's the level where we had our previous all-time high. It also coincides with this upper trend line. But in my opinion, I think if Costco can pull back into the middle end of this channel, even the lower end of this channel, closer to $550 a share. That is, I think, a more compelling spot for really when you can come in here, open a position. If you are long Costco, if you've really held these shares for a long time, I think you can come in here and add to your position at the lower end of this channel, and then anytime it comes up to the top end of this range, that's certainly where you could look to take profits. I certainly wouldn't be looking to take profits in a stock like this all too soon, considering you get dividend growth, you get that special dividend payout, you're holding a very predictable and steady business, and so you also get that capital appreciation. Frankly, I think a support near $530 all the way up to $550 is really where I would look to come into Costco and probably open a position, as this one does tend to trade rich, but with nearly I'd call it a 15% pullback, yeah, closer to 15 to 16% pullback. I think even on a price to earnings basis, this will be closer to at least the mid 30s is where I would first consider picking up shares of Costco. Certainly does tend to occur, not for long though. And so whenever you are presented with those opportunities of picking this one at the bottom end of this channel, that is when I would look to jump into shares of Costco. Let me know your thoughts on Costco in the comment section below. A business I love, but frankly, the valuation just not there right now. And so I would be patient with a stock like this. You will certainly get your opportunities. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.